to this week's video. Now, I'm on a bit of a high as I've not been back long. It's the morning after I went to see Paul McCartney at the O2. He's the greatest living songwriter, a legend. He wrote the soundtrack to many people's lives, including my own. I've been a massive fan ever since I can remember. So I'm going to do a little review, tell you all about what happened and what I thought about it. First of all, though, here's a little bit of a video I shot yesterday in my excitement building up to going. So today is the day, finally, going to see Paul McCartney at the O2. I'm very excited about this. Going with Ralph, who plays drums in the band. His other half couldn't go, so I had to buy the ticket off her. She's gutted she can't go, but I'm very pleased that I can. I've been a Beatles fan for as long as I can remember. And it was my birthday yesterday, and I got this t-shirt. My wife bought me this. But I have just realised it's Here Comes the Sun, which is one of the ones that Paul McCartney obviously didn't write. And I think it was Frank Sinatra famously said introducing Here Comes the Sun when he was about to sing it. This is one of my favourites from the Lennon-McCartney catalogue. Actually, just editing the video, it wasn't Here Comes the Sun. As I was telling that story, Ralph reminded me it was actually Something was the song that Frank Sinatra did, not Here Comes the Sun. So just to prove my credentials as a Beatles fan, I bought this book many years ago with a book token I got for my birthday. Produced exclusively for WH Smith. I used to pore over this book. I haven't looked at it for a long time, I just saw it on my shelf. It's got lots of brilliant photos in it. I also have one that my dad got second-hand in the bookshop and gave to me. The Beatles lyrics, which I used to, it's dusty, used to pore over this one as well. And I've got a song book that I had to get a book for a prize that I won at school for something, and that was the book I chose. It's like the words and the guitar chords. But I got this book, and this is a great book. Apart from, I'll show you this, the foreword is written by this. Almost makes this book completely worthless. Jimmy Savile. We'll gloss over that. And last year, for my, no, not last, I think it was 2 years ago, for my birthday, I got this, the Paul McCartney lyrics book. And I've gone through all of those, listening to them all, because someone put playlists together on Spotify. So I'm very much looking forward to this. I'm going to leave in a minute. Got to pick my daughter up from school, then rush up to near London, where I'm going to meet Ralph, and he's going to take us the rest of the way. So I shall be taking some footage while we're there, and I'm very much looking forward to it. It's had brilliant reviews. The set list has been posted for one of the other nights, but I haven't looked at it because I want it all to be a surprise. See you later. I'm in the car on the way. It's a very nice sunset. Anyway, I live on the south coast, actually about that way, opposite way to I'm going. I've just left home. Literally less than 5 miles as the crow flies. Paul McCartney used to live there. It's in Hove Lagoon. It's these stretch of houses with private beaches behind them, and Fatboy Slim lives in one of them. And Paul McCartney, when he was with Heather, used to own a house there. I don't know if he still does. His main house that he's lived in since the 70s, I believe, is in Sussex as well, where I live. It's in East Sussex, near Rye, Peasmarsh. Yes, so very excited about this. Should start listening to some Paul McCartney on the way up. Right. So here's a bit of footage as we arrive. We're sort of walking to the O2 with everyone else that's going, and obviously it was sold out. It's been sold out for a long time. I think it's 20,000 people, the capacity at the O2, and all these fantastic posters. And we were lucky enough to have got tickets through someone who has a box there, and we were actually in block A1. We were in row Z, so we were at the back of block A1, but we were still pretty close. But it also meant that we could go into the Amex lounge. So this is our kind of way, so we didn't really have to queue, and they've got this state-of-the-art security system, so security's pretty quick. And we got in, and here's a bit of footage of us in the venue before the concert starts. So I went with Ralph, who plays drums in the band with me, Phil, who has played bass with us as well, although he plays guitar and drums as well, brilliant musician, and Ralph's daughter Jess. So this is us, yes, before it starts. And then there was a little bit of a commotion, and one's looking over to one side. We were looking over to the right of where we were, so they got the stage there, and we were looking over to the right, and there's everyone standing up and taking photos. And luckily we had Jess with us, who's young and got good eyesight, and she spotted a certain person walking in and took this photo on my phone for me. Yes, Ringo Starr. We were going, it can't be him, it must be a lookalike. Anyway, more of that later, but you may have already seen on the news. Now, I'm not going to play too much of the music from my footage that I filmed. I didn't film that much because I wanted to just enjoy it. I just wanted to film a few little bits to punctuate this review, but I'm not going to play much music because the trouble is you get all kinds of weird copyright things if you play the music, but I'll show you some of the footage. So this is the moment that he walked on stage. I mean, you know, the word legend can be bandied around, but I think it's appropriate for Paul. And he opened with Hard Day's Night, and then I can't remember how many songs in, but the brass section came on, the horn section, and they were on the big screen. But I was looking, thinking I couldn't see them on the stage. Turns out they were in the audience. They were kind of, I looked just slightly back to my left, and they were up there, sort of on a platform in the audience. And here's a photo from it. And what's funny, as we spotted right behind them, looking a bit sheepish that he'd been caught out for being there, is James May from Top Gear, which was rather funny. And it turns out, looking in the news reports this morning, that not only was James May there, but George Clooney, Ed Sheeran, Kate Moss, Paul McCartney's daughters. I mean, it was a star-studded audience. So he played some of his newer songs. He played some songs from Wings and obviously some Beatles songs. And the whole production of the show was absolutely fantastic. Here's some sort of bits of footage of the video screens behind them and all the graphics and stuff going on. And this was a bit later on, I'm not going to show it now, some of the biggest pyrotechnics I've ever seen in Live and Let Die. I mean, it was just unbelievable, the heat that came off them and the explosions. And there was also one funny moment, the only mistake I heard in the whole show, and it wasn't anything to do with the band. One of the pyrotechnics went off at the wrong bit in Live and Let Die. I'll show you it here, which obviously wasn't supposed to happen because Paul laughed as it happened. He also then did a couple of songs on acoustic guitar, just solo, one of them being Blackbird, and he talked about how he'd written it in response to kind of the segregation they experienced when they first went out to America, and they were playing this venue and they refused to play unless they let the entire audience come together, and apparently that was the first time that it had been allowed, and that venue from then on became unsegregated. He also did a tune on ukulele. He got the ukulele out, and it was a Gibson ukulele for the guitar nerds amongst you, and apparently it was one that George had given him, and there were lots of photos of George during this song, and he said to him, he said, when he gave it to him, I've learned one of your songs, George, on the ukulele, and it was something, and he started doing it on the ukulele, and then they kind of morphed it into more like the original version, and as I say, loads of footage of him with George behind it. It was brilliant, lovely moment. So he played other instruments through the gig. He starts off on bass, and he played a left-handed Les Paul that was all painted, and he played another Les Paul later. He also went and played the grand piano for quite a lot of songs, and then another sort of upright piano at the front of the stage. And also he played the I think he said it was a mandola or something. It was like a small mandolin on the song Dance Tonight, which came out in 2007. And the sort of audience were at the band were at the front of the stage, and his drummer did a brilliant dance routine, doing all things like all that flossing thing and doing all these different dances while they were playing. It was absolutely hilarious. That was a good moment. Another brilliant bit, which I wasn't expecting and I really enjoyed it, is he did his Christmas song, Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas Time. And at one point, this is all part of the, this no expense spared kind of production, something opened up on the roof and all this snow came down. Here's a bit of footage. It was all little bits of tissue paper, and it was absolutely brilliant. It created the most amazing atmosphere. And I have to say, all that sort of canon of classic Christmas songs from the 70s and 80s, which really hasn't been added too much after that, to hear someone who wrote one of those playing it live in front of me, it was quite a moment actually. I didn't expect it to be. He also played that newest song, that last one that they released, the last unreleased Beatles song, the one they managed to sort of piece back together again, and that they gave out as we were walking in these things. It was a loud hailer you could roll up, well I haven't done because I wanted to keep it, to sing Hey Jude and hold these up during Now and Then, that last song. Now the first big surprise guest of the night was, I filmed this bit, it's been in the news recently. His first Hofner bass was stolen 50 years ago. He said, I think it might have even been longer ago than that. And it was found in someone's loft in, I think, Hastings or something. And he's been reunited with it. And he said, I don't know if it was literally the first night, but he said it was the first time he'd played it on stage 50 years. So here he is being reunited with his bass. And it's interesting, it's much redder, the sunburst on it, than the one that sort of all the copies are based on, which presumably the one he's been playing for 50 years that he replaced it with, probably because that one's been used and faded in the sunlight, whereas this one that's been kept in a loft for 50 years still has its kind of quite vivid original red colours. I wonder how much that guitar would be worth. It's priceless really, isn't it?
I haven't played it in 50 years. Sounds like a bass.
But not only was that the guest on this next song, then he introduced Ronnie Wood. I mean, I don't think these days there's any competition between the Rolling Stones and the Beatles like there were in the 60s. You don't have to be a fan of either, but to have one of the Rolling Stones on stage with him was great.
And what is more, we got a special guest for you here. Rolling Stone, Ronnie Wood. You ready for that one? Get back. You ready? Come on now.
And as I say, he did Hey Jude, and that was a brilliant moment. Everyone's singing along with these loud hailers and stuff. And this is printed specially for the night. I know he did it on other nights, but they were printed presumably specially for each gig. It just goes to show no expense spared. I've never been to a show that was quite as lavish, I have to say. So then the show proper ended. I can't remember what he ended. Was it Hey Jude he ended? I can't remember what was the end of the proper show, but obviously he was about to come and do an encore. The house lights stayed down, everyone's cheering for more. And he walks back on, and the first song he did was I've Got a Feeling, and he's duets with John on this, and this is a really poignant, brilliant moment. And as up on the big screen, John's singing. It's the footage from when they were on the Apple building back in '69, I think it was, footage from that the Get Back film that came out a couple of years ago. And he sort of turns his back onto the audience and he's watching John up on the screen, and they do the bit where they're singing their own bits together. It was a brilliant moment. And at the end of the song he says how great it is to be singing with John again. And it was at that point he then says, but we've got another special guest for you. And I'm still tingling thinking about it. Ringo came on. I mean, what a thing to witness. He came on and did 2 songs. It was absolutely fantastic.
I've had a great night tonight. How about you? Great show. Should we rock? You only rock. Okay, get on your kit, Hey, come on, give it up. One, two, three, four. And it proved that the person that was in that photo that Jess took
probably was Ringo Starr, because we were sort of thinking most of the time, oh, perhaps it was a lookalike. And in fact, Jess even told the person stood behind us, I don't think it's actually him, but she spotted as well, because she was able to see that he did disappear off as the sort of show finished proper. You know, for the encore, he then disappeared off, so it must have been him, which is brilliant. So they did these couple of songs of Ringo, and then they ended the show on the end of the Abbey Road album, from Golden Slumbers onwards, which Golden Slumbers is always one of my favourite Beatles songs, and it went from it did that right to the song called The End. They played that whole medley the whole way through, and that's what ended the show, and it was absolutely fantastic. And just I want to give my opinion and comment on the rest of it. Obviously you can tell that I rather enjoyed the whole thing. He played for nearly 3 hours. I think he came on stage about 8:15, and it was after 11, I think, when it finished. So certainly he did 2 hours 45 minutes. And I'd sort of heard criticism before we went that his voice wasn't up to much. Well, that was nonsense. Those songs he sings, you don't realise how high they are, because he used to scream, he could do that, and he was still doing it. He's obviously learnt a way of doing it in a kind of sustainable way, because it's the last night of the tour. He's been touring for I'm not sure how long, but he's 82. He's playing bass or guitar the whole way through and singing. Didn't miss a note. There's no miming here. He doesn't sound like a 25-year-old, and the screaming's not quite the same as it was when he was 25, but he's perfectly in tune. His voice is still there, he's still hitting all the notes. He's not bottling, not changing the melodies, still doing it. Absolutely fantastic. I don't think I could have played for that long and not lost my voice, and he's been doing that night after night. I mean, incredible at 82. But in fact, not just incredible at 82, incredible at any age. And as I mentioned before, this whole thing, how lavish it was, no expense spared. A children's choir came out during the Christmas song. They all had their own radio mics. You know, this is a bit nerdy, you know, as a musician, you notice these things about the amount of gear. But the thing that I really wish I'd counted was his guitarist Rusty, who stands on the left, the dark-haired guy. He played virtually a different guitar in every song. There was a couple that he played again, but there were 3, 3, 5. I mean, I didn't even know what half of them were. A couple of Telecasters, a sitar-y thing. I mean, so many guitars. It must have played 25 different guitars, a different guitar for each song. I mean, I wouldn't want to do that. I quite like to, you know, get into the guitar, play it on a few songs and start to enjoy it. But he was swapping guitars every song, and great guitar sounds as well. In fact, here's a little bit of a thing where the three of them were trading licks. Paul was on a Les Paul, his other guitarist Brian on an SG, and Rusty on this blonde 335, and they were kind of trading licks on the song. Which reminds me, they also did a little tribute to Jimi Hendrix. They did a bit of a Foxy Lady where Paul soloed, and he's a not a bad lead guitarist actually, Paul. It was great. So I'm so glad I managed to go to this. It was he can't be doing it like that for many more years. I mean, I hope he lived for another 20 years. But I mean, how he's doing it now, I don't know. I mean, obviously he's looked after himself. He's in great shape. His voice is still great. I'm so pleased I went, and there was everything there for even the guitar nerd like myself. But just to hear all those songs and how, you know, before we went on, they were just playing Beatles song after Beatles song and Paul McCartney songs. I mean, to have such a vast catalogue that you could play 2 hours of music as people are walking in, of songs, of your own songs that everybody knows that you're then not going to play because you've got a whole other catalogue of songs that you can rely on and draw from to play. I mean, there's not many people in the world, if anybody, that can do that. And I'm so glad to have witnessed it. So definitely, if he does tour again, I'm going to try and go and see him again, and I would urge you to, because it's definitely worth it. It's not like going to see some old bloke who's past it. Not at all. It's almost like he's at the peak of his powers. It's absolutely brilliant. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I bring out new videos 7 PM UK time every Friday, so I hope to see you next week.